Welcome back to the Car Doctor channel. I'm Tim. Thanks for stopping by. Got a quick tip today for those of you needing to do a starter R&R on an Isuzu Trooper with the 3.5 motor. Book time calls for about 2.4 hours labor. I'm going to show you a few tricks to get it knocked out in under an hour. Stay tuned. First off, I'll show you what kind of parts I'm going to use. I've got some quality CarQuest rotating electrical, also Advanced Part Stores, which bought out CarQuest, are going to carry the same line of rotating electrical. It's got a lifetime warranty. It is a reman part. There are new parts available. I haven't had such a problem with these, so I'm sticking with something I know is going to save the customer a little bit of money over the new part. But if you plan on keeping your Trooper, you can always spend a few extra bucks and get a brand new, all new component starter, and probably serve you a little bit longer useful life on it, since they are a very common problem, starter failure on these. Basically, this one was a doesn't crank at all type scenario where it wouldn't start, and had plenty of battery voltage and was actually getting energized at the solenoid. I popped the fender well open on the driver's front tire and just kind of tapped on the starter and got it to kind of crank and then quit. So that's about all the diagnosing we need to do on this one. But basically my tip's going to involve removing a couple motor mount bolts on the left side and lifting the motor slightly enough to remove the starter, remove the wiring, and slip that baby out. So we're going to start first by removing the battery cable. You can remove the positive or negative cable, isolate that, and then it will be an incomplete circuit and protect your electrical system while you service the starter. Okay, so I've removed the negative battery cable and tucked it out of the way. So this is no longer a complete circuit. Electrically, this car is de-energized. You want to make sure and do that so that you don't see fireworks when you're trying to remove the positive cable at the starter solenoid. And, you know, unless you like fireworks and you like to fry your electrical system. But that's definitely a safe thing to do. And now we're going to go over to the left side of the engine here and remove two motor mount securing bolts at the left side motor mount so that we can raise it up and then lift the motor from below. So the bolts I'm talking about are right down alongside the left of the engine, just below the steering shaft and the left side exhaust manifold. There's two that are 14 millimeter bolt head. See if I can get a good picture of it here. Just down there, one on either side of the motor mount. So I'm going to take a long extension and a 14 millimeter wobbly and remove those two bolts. Okay, now that I've removed my two motor mount bolts on the left-hand side, I can go ahead and raise up the vehicle and access the starter from below. Of course, I'm using a 4-post hoist here in an OSHA certified shop, but you may have less than desirable lifting equipment at your disposal, being a DIY person. So I definitely take this opportunity to recommend that you use safe lifting practices. Make sure that your vehicle is on a level surface. Definitely recommend concrete. If you use an asphalt, those jack stands can dig in and cant over and drop that vehicle on you. So use a stable work surface, preferably flat and level and of concrete in nature, and get your jack stands under there, not just some flimsy jack. But this can be done from the ground without a hoist, of course, and you will need the ability to lift the engine slightly on the left-hand side, and I'll show you that as we get under there. But be safe, and let's do this starter repair with no loss of life or limb, and it'll be a much more enjoyable experience for everyone. All right. Okay, I want my videos to be as realistic as possible, and this is the real world, so I have to admit that I just spent an extended amount of time digging my socket and one of the bolts out of the left front after I had removed those motor mount bolts. There's one of the bolts, and there's my wobbly socket, and it comes in really handy to have one of these telescopic magnet on a stick. But also keep in mind that there's this access just inside of the left front tire. Pull back that little rubber boot there, and it'll give you a view right down on top of those motor mount bolts. And if you don't have a long extension, you can probably access those bolts by just pulling that cover back and accessing it just above the left front tire. But yeah, real world stuff. It's not something that is included in our labor times. So now we really need to save some time, because I just spent 15 minutes looking for some lost parts. But we got them, and on to the next. So just going to come in and access the wiring to the starter, which is just behind the oil pan area and just ahead of the left exhaust pipe. See if we can get a shot up here. You can see the O2 sensor, and then the starter is just up here. Make sure we got good lighting and everything. And so one of the reasons why this is a real time saver, especially in those times when you have rust on these older vehicles, or when you're in the Rust Belt area on the East Coast area, and you have to, if you follow the recommended manufacturer's guide for changing out the starter, you're going to have to drop these exhausts off of here, and that's going to be a real pain if you've got excessive amount of rust. You're going to be dealing with broken exhaust bolts and whatnot. So you want to try to avoid that, and this little trick will help you do that. So first, we're going to remove the electrical wiring at the starter solenoid. Just in front of the starter here, we'll pull that boot down from the main starter feed at the solenoid. See if we can see that. There's the starter wiring right there. So I pulled the boot down, and I believe that's a 12 millimeter. And go ahead and remove the solenoid, the signal wire there off of that spade, and we'll get a 12 millimeter here and remove that positive cable. I'm going to reach up in there with a 12 millimeter on my flex head 3/8 ratchet. You can also use a combination wrench to get up there and get that terminal bolt loose. All right, we've got it disconnected now. Now I need to remove the two bolts fastening the starter to the engine block. Put them up in here. I'm using my 14 millimeter wobbly again on a 3/8 drive with an extension. In order to get to that inner bolt on the starter, I'm going to need to remove this small sheet metal shield here, shielding the wiring that runs under the starter, and it attaches to the bell housing area of the transmission. Just a couple little 10 millimeter bolt head screws, and then pull this little cover out of the way. Give me a little better access to the inner starter bolt, so that I can pull this harness down and get in there with my wobbly head socket. There we go. All right. Now I got both my starter bolts out. I got my wiring disconnected, and now it's time to lift the engine slightly. So, you know, you can go under this side of the oil pan, which is probably where I'm going to lift from, and just make sure you don't crush the oil pan or something like that. Put a 2x4 under your lifting device, your jack or whatever, and let's try to get a little clearance here so we can get the starter out through this hole. Okay, now what I've done is actually supported, put a jack stand underneath the oil pan, and then lowered the vehicle on the hoist and lifted the engine. Once again, you got to be real careful. There's a a pinch hazard if whatever you're supporting the engine comes loose, and then you end up with the engine dropping down on your arm and pinching in there. You don't want that. But I've gone ahead and got a little bit of lift there, and let's see if we can get the starter out past this exhaust header pipe here. All right, we got her. So it would have saved me a little bit of a hassle had I dropped this cross member off the back of the engine here. But nonetheless, I was able to sneak it out. You had to manipulate the starter a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and grab the new starter, and we're going to reinstall this thing. Yeah, you definitely want to pay attention to how you're removing this, because it's only going to go back in the same way it came out. And there's not much extra clearance to goof around. So I'm going to try to put it back in just how I had it, kind of upside down, and that in first. And see how it goes here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, hey, so there are little centering dowels on the two starter retaining bolts. So you want to definitely tighten it evenly and make sure it doesn't get cocked over, and make sure the starter lines up with the little centering dowels that stick out of there. So I've got both bolts tightened. I'm going to go ahead and raise the vehicle back up, which will reseat the engine onto the mount, and then reconnect my wires. Okay, definitely take care when you're tightening up the solenoid bolt for the main battery feed. You don't want to over tighten that. You want it snugged up, and there's probably an inch-pound torque measurement there, but I can't even fit my torque wrench in there. But I just got a feel for it, and you don't want to over tighten it and break that plastic solenoid. That would be a bummer deal. So I've gone ahead and tightened that. I'll go ahead and slip the little starter signal wire back on the end of the solenoid. And pull my little boot over the positive feed wire. Now I'm going to reinstall my little sheet metal shield over the electrical wiring harness that runs down over the bell housing there and protects that harness. Okay. Now I'm ready to lower the vehicle and reinstall our two motor mount bolts, reconnect the battery, and we'll have this thing back on the road. Okay, here's a little bit more real world stuff. When I lowered it back down, the motor mount didn't line up exactly. So I'm just going to put a little pry bar down in there and just pry on the lower portion of the motor mount and line up the two bolt holes. Should drop right in. We'll see here. Close. Perfect. All right, well, there's nothing left to do here but give this thing a try, confirm the repairs were a success. Very nice, it does what it's supposed to do. Hey, if this video was helpful, appreciate the likes below, appreciate the subscriptions, and hey, go ahead and share in the comments your Isuzu Trooper Starter story, and hope this little vid was of assistance to you. And I want to wish you good luck with your repairs. Take care.